Welcome to the Vol Bros. My name is Evan. This is my brother Omaha, and we are two Vol Bros who are actually bros in real life. You'll notice my voice sounds a little bit different this evening as I'm suppressing a cough right now. It's because I got an upper respiratory infection, but I'm on a Z-Pack, so hopefully I'll be able to make it through this without coughing a whole lot. If you see me mute, that's why, because I'm coughing. So, my goodness, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. I almost played the football intro instead of the baseball one because we're going to talk a lot of football tonight. Um, but John's ready to go. Good to have you with us, John. Good to have you, man. We got so much to talk about. We're going to here's our lineup. We're going to start with the OmaVols. Baseball is now the OmaVols, and then we're going to talk about what's better, an 8-game or a 9-game conference schedule, and then we're going to look at every single SEC team's conference schedule in 2024. And so we're going to break it down and do our way too early predictions for that. There's so much that can change between now and then, but you know what? Who cares? Let's talk about it anyway. And then we'll get into it. So to start off, the baseballs are now OmaVols. Rustin, what do you think about Monday night? Well, / Tuesday morning's game. And then tell us what you're looking forward to for this weekend.
I thought the pitching was outstanding. They could not have asked for a better performance from Drew Beam. It's only one out, but a big out by Aaron Combs. Aaron Combs came in and was just dealing. And then Chase Burns, my goodness. After the game, everybody made made a huge deal over Chase Burns because anytime you hit triple digits multiple times, everybody's going to ooh and ah over that. And he was great. But I felt like they gave a little too much credit to him and not enough to Drew Beam. Drew Beam had just an outstanding performance, and the key to winning in postseason is good defense, good pitching, and timely hitting. And, Zane Denton provided all the timely hitting we needed for a fantastic pitching performance. We really didn't do anything defensively to hurt ourselves. So, pretty complete win. And I know Tony Vitello had to be feeling really good about it. Very interested to see what's going to happen this weekend. You can't do anything about your bracket in Omaha. It's all predetermined, and unfortunately, probably the two best teams in Omaha are on our side of the bracket.
Absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I really hope they change the rotation. I hope we see Chase Dolander Saturday against Paul Skeens. Andrew Lindsay for the last several weeks has not been as good as Dolander, and the other reason I hope we see Doe is he's been in that environment. He's experienced it. He understands big games. And when you're in the biggest of games, biggest of stages, you need your best players on the field. I would love for them. The winning game one in Omaha is really important.
It's vital.
But if you lose game one, obviously then game two becomes a win or go home.
Yeah.
So I would love to see them throw Dolander in game one and Beam in game two, and let Andrew Lindsay be the number 3 starter. And, if they win the first two, then he's throwing in the kind of winners bracket final game. And the way that rotation falls, there would be enough time if they wanted to, if they had to have the if necessary game, they could actually bring Dolander back and throw him again for the if necessary game. So I really hope that's what they end up doing. I think that's going to be the most effective way. It gets you, again, if game two ends up being a win or go home scenario, I want Drew Beam on the mound. I don't want anybody else.
Sure.
He is Mr. Reliable. He's all year long. He's been a guy that they can go to when they need a win.
Really interesting question by Tony Vitello to Drew Beam during the postgame press conference. Tony looked at him and said, "Is this the first time you've thrown under the lights?" And when you stop and think about it, the Sunday game is always an afternoon game.
Mm-hmm.
And so, sure enough, this season, that was the first time Drew Beam has ever thrown under the lights.
Yeah, he said the last time was last year at Kentucky.
Yeah, and it was only once last year, so it's only the second time in his Tennessee career. John said that was a wicked curveball. Absolutely was, man. That thing was bending like crazy. It was incredible the motion, the movement he had on that ball. Um, that was my big takeaway from Monday night, Tuesday morning was like you said, hitting and the pitching. My goodness, and I think 102 has to be the tops of Chase Burns' career at Tennessee as well. I don't think he's ever done a pitch that touched 102. That was just absolutely incredible by Drew Beam, Combs, and Chase Burns, all three of them. And my goodness, think about all the arms that they had in the bullpen that they didn't even have to go to. That shows how deep and how talented their pitching staff is. And let's not mince words. I mean, Tennessee is where they are right now because of their pitching. That's why they're there.
Right.
And as we look forward to Omaha, here's a bracket. Now, I think this is interesting. This was actually made while the Texas and Stanford and Tennessee and Southern Miss games were still happening. But Zach asked a really good question. He said, so let me ask you a question. Do we have to beat LSU 2 times and they all have to beat us 1 time, or is it a new series best out of 3? So here's how Omaha is set up. And I'm going to take that lower third off the screen so that everybody can see it as well as they possibly can. Let me see if I can zoom in even a little bit more, and that'll help everybody out. Yeah, there we go. All right, so this is legitimately 2 totally separate 14 double elimination tournaments, essentially is what this is.
Right.
Just like the regional round, how you have in the regional round in the NCAA tournament, you've got 4 teams in a double elimination tournament. That's exactly what we have right now in Omaha. And it's different from the Women's College World Series because the Women's College World Series, once you get to the semifinal round, you flip sides of the bracket. You do not do that in the Men's College World Series. This is no joke. It is 2 totally separate, essentially, separate 14 double elimination tournaments. And the winners of each of those tournaments play in a best 2 out of 3 series in the championship round.
And everybody's records reset because he asked, does Tennessee have to win twice? Because he's making an assumption that LSU doesn't have a loss yet and Tennessee does. So no, they do not have to.
That's a good question.
It's everybody's records reset. They just it's literally like starting over.
So as you look at this, I think it's blatantly obvious to see the lower part of this bracket is by far and away much tougher than the top part. I mean, there's no doubt the top part's tough too. I mean, you don't get to Omaha unless you're good. But with Wake Forest and LSU both being in that lower bracket, my goodness, that makes it really, really tough. And when you add in Tennessee's pitching into that too, that's just going to be, I mean, this is going to be must-see TV down here in the lower part of this bracket. That's going to be amazing. As you look at this, Saturday night, Tennessee's got to play LSU. So if Dolander pitches, he threw on Sunday, that's 5 days rest coming out, throwing on the 6th day. I mean, I think he could do that for sure. Lindsey would have a full week, but that was actually one question I was going to ask Rustin tonight was who does he think will be on the mound for game 1? Not who you want on the mound. Who do you think will be on the mound? What's your answer to that? You still going with Dolander?
Still Dolander. This is, just like Stanford's pitcher the other night throwing 156 pitches. This is win or go home time. Like this is not take care of arms, take every precaution. This is you got time to heal later. So I will be stunned if Andrew Lindsey walks out there Saturday night. It better be Chase Dolander.
So I actually misspoke earlier. I said that, if they do what you say and they do Dolander Saturday and then June 19th, which would be next Monday, would be Drew Beam. That'd be a week's rest for him.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about this game, and that would be Andrew Lindsey. So I misspoke. I said that'd be the winner's bracket final. That is not the winner's bracket final. That is the championship, first game of the championship,
right?
As far as this lower regional.
Right. It's essentially game 1. And then, the way it lays out, if there was an if necessary game, they could bring Dolander back. and that would actually set him up to be the number 2 starter in the World Series championship.
So let's be totally honest. When you're looking at the bottom half of this bracket, you got to get to game 8. Like, that's the game that you got to get to right here. Actually, well, it's game 12. The winner of game 8 is this one. You got to get to game 12 and be in this spot. You got to be the winner of game 8, because if you make it here, now whoever is in the losers bracket will have had to play at least one more game than you. So they have one less pitcher available, and they would then have to beat you twice. So you got to get to this game. You got to get to this game.
I will say this: if there's anybody honestly in either bracket that could come out of the losers bracket and has enough pitching depth to do it, it's Tennessee.
Yeah, I agree.
There's literally no one else on this list that has the pitching depth to do it.
Yeah. And, I think any national commentator would totally agree with that as well. No one's going to argue that Tennessee has the deepest pitching staff in the country. Like, that's a given at this point. Ideally, it would be Dolander against LSU, and then probably Drew Beam against, I'm assuming, Wake Forest, and then Andrew Lindsay to start this game right here. And then if necessary, you might even see Seth Halverson or Chase Burns, but I think Chase Burns will probably have been already throwing.
Or Camden Sewell. They have used him as a starter in the postseason in the past.
Yeah.
Or Xander Sechrist. I mean, they've got options.
Yeah. Because then if that works out and you do make it to the championship series, then Dolander will have been on 7 days rest at that point, Saturday to Saturday, and he could start game 1 of the championship series. Drew Beam would be on 6 days rest by the time game 2 of the championship series rolls around. So the good news is for Tennessee, they have 5 or 6 legitimate starters on their lineup.
Yeah.
That they can put out there and start these games with. And so, that has to be something that Tony Vitello is really leaning on heading into this. Zach said Chase in game 1, Beam in game 2 to finish it. He said, or flip it with Beam and then Chase in game 2. Put your ace in the biggest spot you can. Yeah, I mean, that I just don't know if there'd be enough time for Drew Beam to throw on Saturday after Monday.
Yeah, and I would actually argue that having Drew Beam throw second is putting your ace in the biggest spot. Because if we win and game 2 is to be in the winners, essentially the winners bracket champion, I want Drew Beam on the mound. If we lose and
he's
the game
definitely
is
been the
to
most consistent
keep our
pitcher
season going, I want Drew Beam on the mound. I think, Chase Dolander can get hot and he can be lights out. Chase Burns can get hot. He can be lights out. But Drew Beam is our most complete pitcher, and he's our most consistent pitcher, and you know what you're going to get every time he goes out there.
He has certainly been the most consistent this whole year so far. But I think, as you look at this, you have to be, first of all, you're obviously concerned because you got LSU and Wake Forest on your half of the bracket. But you have to be encouraged knowing that Tennessee has the pitching staff that could handle this. Mm-hmm. When Chase Dolander threw against LSU earlier this year, they should have won the game. They lost because a fly ball fell in the middle of the infield, because they just watched it hit the ground. So, I mean, like that, when you think about the potential matchups, you got to love Tennessee's chances just because of their pitching, if they can be on and that kind of thing, be in control of their stuff. But man, it's just, that's a gauntlet.
This is how good Tennessee's pitching is. And I don't think people realize or have taken this for granted. I don't think they realize what a big deal this is. We just went on the road in a super regional and played 3 games. And A.J. Russell, who today was named a freshman All-American, never stepped on the mound.
Yeah.
Kirby Cannell, who's probably our most reliable left-handed reliever, never stepped on the mound.
Yep.
Xander Sechrist, who is our weekday starter, who on most pitching staffs is a guy that in the postseason you rely heavily on, never stepped on the mound. Hollis Fanning, who throws mid-90s consistently and has a nasty curveball, never stepped on the mound. Like, it is insane the talent that sat in that bullpen all weekend long and never got loose.
They weren't needed. That's the thing. It's just incredible. I'm going to pull up that stat from Bill Martin. If you don't follow Bill Martin on Twitter, do yourself a favor and follow Bill Martin. Rustin saw this tweet earlier yesterday, I think it was, and tweeted it out. And I was like, good night. I didn't even realize that. So Vols pitching in the final 15 innings of the Super Regional, 0 runs, 0 extra base hits, 18 strikeouts, and 3 walks.
Yep.
That's incredible. And one of those walks was Chase Dolander, and it wasn't until the 9th inning. He didn't allow a single walk until the 9th inning. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So Zach said, everyone feared us. Nobody wanted to see us in the College World Series. Let's face it, they're more scared of us than we are of them. I think they're legitimate. I think every single coaching staff on this screen right now is concerned about Tennessee's pitching because they know how good it is. That is not anything that is, that's a commonly known thing now. I mean, everybody knows just how good Tennessee's pitching staff is. And they got the arms to make a deep run if their bats show up. And that's the main thing. Yeah. I mean, my goodness, you're starting off against probably the number 1 or number 2 draft pick in the country this year against Paul Skeens with LSU. I mean, dude is crazy good. And talk about it.
I saw a stat the other day that blew my mind. There is not a single player on LSU's roster that has been to Omaha.
That's really surprising.
Not a single one. Even with all their transfers, there is not a single player on their entire roster who has ever been to Omaha. If there was ever a time to get them, this is the time. Because they're going to walk out there. They haven't been in that environment. It's different. We've got guys on our roster who were there the year before last. If there was ever a time to jump on them, it's this game.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Okay, well, our second point of discussion for today, what's better? Because tonight the SEC on SEC Network released the schedules for the 2024 season. Zach said LSU is good, but we're good too. 1 through 9 try to get us out. Yeah, I agree. The only caveat in that is Cal Stark
1 through 8.
Cal Stark is really struggling right now offensively.
1 through 8 try to get us out. 9 holes an automatic out right now.
It's a really good thing when Cal Stark walks or gets hit by a pitch or something.
If Cal Stark fouls a ball off really, really hard, you can almost be guaranteed the next pitch is going to be a strikeout.
Yeah. So 1 through 8, we're playing much better right now, hitting much better, especially Zane Denton. Man, he's on fire right now. So is Christian Moore. So what is better? An 8 or 9 game conference schedule. Tonight, SEC released the 2024 conference opponents. Very interesting to see some of that. First of all, I think the SEC did a phenomenal job making it balanced, also retaining traditional rivalries. That was the most impressive thing. They retained every single traditional rivalry, which I was very appreciative of. So, Rustin, do you want to go first? Or you want me to give my opinion first?
But don't you think they retained every traditional rivalry because they know in 2024 or 2025 it's going to be gone? This is kind of like the Swan. This is the Swan song. They're like, yeah, we kept it for you. All right, now next year we're going to change it.
Well, and that's one thing to consider is that the 2024 schedule is a standalone thing. This format, could it be continued on? Yeah, it could if they agree on it. But as it stands right now, the 2024 format is only for 2024. And then they're going to reevaluate and proceed from there. But as it stands right now, it is only for 2024. So I'll go, you want me to go first? I'll go first.
Go for it.
So I personally am a big proponent of the 8-game schedule. And I know that there are a lot of people who disagree with me. I think Rustin might actually disagree with me. But I personally am a big proponent of the 8-game schedule. The reason being is because all that matters is wins. That's it. That's all that matters in the long run. So at the end of the season, as the playoff committee is sitting there looking at, what's their strength of schedule, who is their best loss. No, didn't mean to rub any wounds there. But that kind of stuff. The one thing that changes all that, how many wins do they have? That's the one thing that changes it. What's their record? It doesn't matter if you're playing, Chattahoochee Middle School. Of course, Coach Lance Decker would, he's undefeated. He's under 50-0, so you might lose. But, it doesn't matter if you're playing a middle school team. If you win, it helps you. At the end of the season, if you think about Georgia in 2023. Their season this year, they have a cupcake schedule. No, it's not a cupcake schedule, but it's as pretty doggone close as you can get to a cupcake schedule as you can. They have an easy schedule ahead of them. And all that matters is that they win. If they go through that schedule and they win every game, they're going to be in the playoff, period. So all that matters is if you win. So why not do what Nick Saban has done? Why not do what these other teams have done and schedule as many easy games as you can? Because all that matters in the long run is that you win the games. That's it. It doesn't matter who you play. All that matters is that you have won. At the end of the season, if you're 12-0 or 11-1, you're getting in the playoff in the SEC. That's the reality of it. So why would you want to add another game? Now, I know there's money involved. I get that. But why would you want to add in another difficult game that you have to win when you could have 4 FCS teams on your schedule with guaranteed 4 W's right there? Now, I invite you to consider Florida right now because Florida just got their 2024 conference opponents revealed to them. And somebody at Florida may have it out for Billy Napier. I don't know. But Florida, they're playing every big school in the state of Florida in 2024. They're playing Florida State, they're playing Miami, and they're playing UCF. Okay. If the SEC had gone to a 9-game schedule, that last game would have been another SEC team. So Florida's schedule in 2024, if it had been a 9-game schedule, would have been 9 conference games and 3 Power 5 schools. No, thank you. Tennessee already has to schedule. I said 4 FCS schools. Well, I shouldn't have said that because it'd still be 3 because you still have to schedule an out of conference Power 5 school. So why not schedule one of those and have 3 FCS games, and you've at least got 3 wins in your back pocket? That's just my opinion. I think what we saw tonight with some of the schedules, like Alabama, dadgum, they got a hard road ahead of them. Excuse me, in 2024. So that's my opinion. I think that the 8-game schedule is what's best for the teams if they want to make it to the college football playoff, which, let's be honest, the SEC wants teams to make it to the college football playoff. And now that it's in 2024, when it's expanded to 12 teams, the SEC could legitimately end up with 2 or 3 teams every year in the playoff.
Or 4 or 5.
Or 4, yeah. And they want that. They want that to be the case. What's your opinion, Russ?
So, as strictly a fan's perspective, I love the 9-game schedule because I just want to see better games. The other day on Mac and Cube, Greg McElroy said he made this comment. He said, "I'm not going to go watch Georgia and Citadel." He said, "And if there is even an average game on television at the same time, I'm going to watch the average game." So, from just a sheer fans perspective, I would prefer the 9, because then you add on the mandatory Power 5 game. Now you've got 10 Power 5 games on the schedule, and it's just better TV. But if I was a coach, I would be screaming for the 8-game schedule, because you're going to mandate that I play another Power 5. There's going to be a mad scramble to schedule every bottom end Pac-12 and Big 12 team in America. Everybody's going to be trying to get them. And those people are actually going to make a lot of money off this deal. And, luckily Tennessee already has NC State as their Power 5 game in 2024. So that's a extremely winnable game. So from a coach's perspective, I would want the 8. I think the residual benefit of 8 that probably the NCAA and the SEC have thought of, but maybe the common fan hasn't. We don't want to get to like 10 conference games, or heaven forbid, you have to play 12 conference games and there's no non-conference games, because those are all steps toward mega conferences, and those are all steps toward the group of 5 schools all being out of business. And, the FCS schools just quitting football, because they just can't afford to do it anymore. People need to understand that FCS schools need these payday games. Some of these payday games don't just pay for the football program, they pay for minor sports as well at these schools.
Right.
So, you're not just talking about, we want really, really good football, we want mega conferences, we want, Clemson and Florida State to leave the ACC and come to the SEC. Let's play 12 conference games, and, ESPN gets all these massive TV rights. If you're a fan of Samford, or if you're a fan of UTC, you don't want this, because your alma mater won't have football much longer.
Yep, you're exactly right. John said Nick won't let it stand. We'll see. I'm curious to see his. I'm sure someone will ask him this week about his schedule that was released. Zach said, "Oh, this chaos! I heard this stuff on Josh Pate. I said SEC teams, not just Tennessee, can go to 10 conference games, and we'll still put a can of whoop on other conference."
So another national analyst the other day made this comment, and I thought it was interesting. 10 conference game schedule is not new. The Pac-12 did this a couple of years ago and have kept it in place. And I think everybody associated with the Pac-12 would collectively agree that it's been a horrible idea.
Well, how many Pac teams have made the college football playoff in the last 5 years?
So it's hurt them in bowls. It's hurt them in the playoffs. I think they would all collectively agree they wish they could switch it back.
Yep, absolutely. Carl said, "Carl, welcome, buddy. Good to see you. It's good to see everybody. Zach and John with us too. Carl, good to have you." He said, "Well, at least we don't have to play Florida, Georgia, and Bama." Oh, wait, never mind. So I get that. I'm actually glad that we still get to play all 3 of them. I thought Florida was gone. I didn't think we get to play Florida in this situation, but thankfully we do. I don't think it'll be an every year kind of thing. I think they just kept it for that first year just to appease all the fans. I don't think they'll play Florida every year after this, though. I do think they'll keep the Bama game for every year. I don't think they'll keep the Georgia game for every year either.
I'm not sure they will. I think they'll keep the Florida game. I think they're going to decide that Florida is our natural rival, because if they keep Bama, that means Alabama doesn't get to play Auburn every year. They're not going to get rid of the Iron Bowl.
And, once again, that all goes back to what are they going to do in 2025? Is it going to be an 8-game season or a 9-game season? And there's something else everybody needs to remember about this too. One of the things they said on SEC Network it was very quick that they mentioned it, but it's actually really, really important, especially as Tennessee fans. They said that one of the things that was a criteria was they went back the last 10 seasons and did an average winning percentage for the last 10 seasons in conference. And then that was a factor in how they matched up the teams. Okay. Josh Heupel only accounts for 2 of those 10 seasons.
Yeah.
The previous 10 would have been Jeremy Pruitt and Butch Jones. So, you got to remember as they're revealing those schedules and everything, I'm sure all the people watching it with recency bias in their minds all across the Southeast are like, well, Tennessee's good. Like, why are they putting them, against Tennessee and stuff? That's not the case in those schedules, because I mean, I hate to say it, but if you take the average winning percentage of the last 10 years when Tennessee's going 3-5, 3-5, 3-5 in the multiple years in a row there over the last 10 years, Tennessee was one of the weak teams in that average strength of schedule thing.
Yeah.
Tennessee was one of the weak teams. And so when they got put on people's schedule, they were considered a weaker team. So that is totally skewing every single team in the conference's schedule, not just the ones that are playing Tennessee. They just have it worse. But the other teams, they when they considered all of the different teams, Tennessee was one of the weaker teams in that big pool. And so that influenced what teams had to play other teams as well to make it fair. And the teams that drew Tennessee, they just got the shaft because they got a weak team that's actually a college football playoff contender now. So, it didn't work out for those teams that got Tennessee on their schedule. But that's something to remember as we look at all these schedules here in just a second. You want me to go ahead and put them up there, Rustin?
Sure. Zach just made a comment. He said he thinks it's Alabama, Vandy, or Kentucky. He's referring to the 3-game, 3 permanent opponent option that was attached to the 9-game schedule that everyone thought they were going to vote through. That got shot down. So
for now,
I'm not sure it's going to come back. The ADs were pretty
2025, but it probably won't.
Right. But the ADs were pretty consistent that they didn't want it. That was a Greg Sankey thing, and I think he found out that his schools weren't as on board as he thought they were. So in the 8-game schedule, you only have 1 permanent opponent. And that's what I was saying. I think ours will probably be Florida because they don't want to lose the Iron Bowl. But in a weird twist of events, what if it was Vanderbilt?
It might be.
What if they said we've got to have Florida with Georgia and Alabama's got to be with Auburn? So Tennessee Vanderbilt in-state rivalry is going to be Tennessee's permanent opponent.
It works out pretty well for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd hate to lose the Alabama game, and I'd hate to lose the Florida game too. But if there's only 1 permanent opponent, I mean, having Vanderbilt as your permanent opponent is a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah.
Because once again, all that matters is if you win. That's
right.
all that matters.
It's always good to get an extra homecoming game every year.
Exactly. If you want to go to the playoff, you have to win. That's all that matters. Zach said we want to continue that in-state rivalry. Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to look at every single team's schedule, and I'll do it reverse alphabetical order for 2 reasons. Number one, that's the way it's going to be on the screen as I scroll down the SEC conference's Twitter feed chronologically. And then also number 2, that puts us at talking about Tennessee faster. So this is 2024, not 2023. If you want to see 2023's schedule, go ahead and go back and watch our video about that. And I'll try to remember to put a link in the description about that, our season prediction for this year. This will be 2024. Just as a side note, Vanderbilt's out-of-conference opponent that season is Virginia Tech, their other Power 5 opponent. They're playing that at home. They're going to lose that. But here's their schedule. You want to go game by game, Rustin?
Well, I think I'll just talk more broadly as far as Vanderbilt's concerned. If you watch Vanderbilt's recruiting, if you watch the things that they're doing, they're not changing. They're not getting any better. I think the hardest thing they have going for them is probably 3 of their 4 toughest games are on the road, or at home. I mean, so they're not
Yep.
getting the teams that they could beat at home. They're getting them on the road. I very legitimately could see Vanderbilt going 0-8 right here.
Yeah, for sure. I think they
Especially if
might have a chance at Missouri, but that's about it.
I think they have a chance at Missouri if it's early in the season. If that ends up being a November game, nobody plays well in November in Missouri.
Yeah.
That's just a miserable place to go.
And some people might be thinking, well, what about Auburn? They weren't that great last year. That's true, but don't let recency bias, you know, influence your perspective of them, because what we're looking at right here would be year 2 of Hugh Freeze at Auburn.
Yeah.
So
and year 2 of Hugh Freeze soliciting the transfer portal. You give Hugh Freeze 2 years and he will have a roster. They'll be just fine.
Right. Absolutely. Carl said Vandy should go to the Ivy League. They might actually do better if they did that.
Yep.
Their stadiums might be about the same size too. So that's Vanderbilt's schedule for 2024. And probably what we'll do is we'll take each one of these and divide them up into separate videos, just short little videos. So we'll take each one and put them out there as individual things over the next several days. So that's Vanderbilt. Zach said I'll go on a limb saying they will beat Texas. I don't know. I mean, Texas, that'll be year 3 of Arch Manning. Or no, year 2 of Arch Manning. Yeah.
Or year 3 of Quinn Ewers.
Right.
I don't see that.
That's a tough home schedule for them. I mean, that's a really tough home schedule.
Yeah.
Hey, side note. How awesome was it? How awesome was it tonight to hear Chris Doering say that Tennessee was a national power or a traditional power?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, how long has it been since people could have said that? Kudos to you, Josh Heupel, that you have them back in that conversation where recruiting or where commentators on SEC Network are calling Tennessee a traditional power again. Thank you, Josh Heupel, for doing that. We appreciate that. John said Vandy should go to the ACC and Clemson come to the SEC. I mean, that actually would be pretty cool. I think that would be good for both parties. So let's go back into our next team here, which would be Texas A&M, and they got it made in the shade compared to a whole bunch of other people. So they get Arkansas, LSU, Missouri, and Texas at home. They have to go to Auburn, Florida, Mississippi State, South Carolina. So let's just take game by game. Arkansas at home. Actually, well, it's a neutral site game. It's at AT&T Stadium.
So I think overall this might be the hardest one to pick because who knows what in the world's going to happen this year.
Yeah. Okay, so just here's my opinion on that. By this point, there is not going to be a middle ground. At this point, it's going to be either they're kicking everybody's tail offensively because Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino have totally figured this thing out, and man, they are just rocking and rolling, or they're going to be even more of a dumpster fire than they were this past year because Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher cannot stand each other's guts.
Right.
One of the it's not going to be in the middle. It's going to be one of the two extremes.
It's possible that by the time we get to this, Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino aren't at Texas A&M.
I totally agree.
If it goes off the rails and they've got another year under their belts of his buyout dropping, I could easily see them saying we're done with this and just ending it all together.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So that's why I think this is really, really hard to pick. So let's do it assuming that everything's okay.
Okay. If everything's okay, I think they beat Arkansas at home because KJ Jefferson would be gone. LSU, who knows? I don't think Jaden Daniels will still be there, but he might be.
But they've got 2 studs behind him, so they're not going to when he leaves, they're not going to lose anything.
All right, so we can say that could be a loss then.
I think so.
So that's a 1-1. Missouri, I think they'll beat Missouri.
Yep.
I don't think they'll beat Texas. I think it helps them that it's at home, but I don't think they'll beat Texas.
Yeah,
So
because
that's 2-2.
this is either year 3 of Quinn Ewers, which if he's still got the job, that means he's playing really, really well, or it's
Yeah,
year 2 of Arch Manning, and if he's got the job, that means he's playing well and beat out Quinn Ewers. So
yeah.
I think it's Texas either way.
Auburn at Auburn, I think Hugh Freeze beats them personally. I mean, we'll see. Auburn's got a lot of rebuilding to do. They got a lot of rebuilding, so I mean, they might not.
Yeah.
That's a toss up, in my opinion. At Florida, I mean, Florida is going to have a gauntlet that year. I think they're going to be, especially if that game is late in the year, they're going to be so downtrodden by that point. I think Texas A&M probably beats them. But if Texas A&M is at each other's throats, then Florida could beat them.
I think Florida will be officially off the rails by this point.
Probably.
When you look at their recruiting and the guys that they're signing and the guys they're missing on, people just are not going to Florida. So
they just had a 4-star running back flip to Georgia.
Yeah, and did a dance party at a Georgia camp to announce it. You know, so they're not just leaving; they're leaving with style, which is always a bad sign.
Yeah. Mississippi State, I'll give him that one. I'll say Florida wins that one, and then South Carolina. No, I think South Carolina beats them. Although Spencer Rattler will be gone. Oh wait, I was thinking Florida.
Yeah, no.
So Texas A&M, never mind.
A&M absolutely beats Mississippi State, and if everything's going well, they boat race South Carolina.
Yeah, I agree. Spencer Rattler will be gone by then.
So I think we're probably looking. I would have this right here at 6-2,
with the 2 losses being
LSU and Texas.
Yeah, and potentially Auburn. Just depends on how well Hugh Freeze is doing in the transfer portal. Because that's the thing. Like normally it would take years to rebuild that roster. The transfer portal has removed that. You can do it real quick now, as evidenced by Josh Heupel in Tennessee. All right. So speaking of Tennessee, that's our next one. So we got to consider. Here's Tennessee's 2024 schedule. We have to consider that this will be post Joe Milton. Mm-hmm. So Nico Iamaleava will be the, I'm certain will be the starting quarterback at this point. Yep. This will be his second year in the system. He will be the backup this year. That'll be his second year in the system. They get Alabama at home. Alabama is still trying to find a quarterback. We'll see what ends up happening there. They get Florida at home. That's a win. They get Kentucky at home. That's a win. They get Mississippi State at home. That's a win. They got to go to Arkansas. Oh, man. Now, I don't care what the deal is. For some reason, Tennessee-Arkansas is always a close game. Always. Yep. And I don't understand why that happens, but it does. I think since KJ Jefferson will be gone, that favors Tennessee. I think Tennessee goes in and beats Arkansas. Georgia, this will be the year 2 of their quarterback. I can't think of his name. That'll be starting this year. That'll be his second year going to Georgia. I don't know if they'll be able to win that game. So right now, you got Alabama and Georgia as 2 potential losses. I'm going to say they win the home game, and it's a huge deal. And I'm going to say they lose at Georgia. What do you think?
So I think this is another hard one because we have a ton of veteran guys this year, this upcoming year for 2023 that are all going to graduate or go pro. Yeah. So we've got an insane amount of talent behind them, but it's all going to be unproven talent. So, you know, Nico starts at quarterback. Our only position that's going to be proven will be running back. Right. We'll probably lose Jabari Small at the end of this year, but I think everybody else will stay. So Agreed. We'll have a deep backfield. But if you look at the slots and splits, you're losing Brew McCoy, you're losing Jacob Warren, you're losing Ramel Keaton, Dante Thornton. Although he has a COVID year, he could opt to stay for one more. So, you're losing a lot on the perimeter, and the guys behind them are uber talented. So it may not matter. But, linebacker, you lose Keenan Peely and Aaron Beasley.
Yeah.
So now we're starting dudes that at every linebacker position, they're starting for the first time ever.
Yep.
You're going to replace at least one safety, possibly both corners.
Yep.
That's a lot of change, and the guys behind them are good, but until you've done it, it's not the same as practice.
Yep.
So I think we beat Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi State. I think we beat Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. I'm extremely underwhelmed by Oklahoma. Not impressed with them at all. So
So let's talk about that game real quick, because I was confident that Texas was going to be on our schedule, because we've played Oklahoma in the not so distant past. Well, I was so naive. I should have realized that no, the powers that be want to make sure that they get the storyline of Josh Heupel going back to Oklahoma at the earliest possible time. So
yeah,
that makes sense that they're having to go to Oklahoma. Here's the thing with Nico, depending on when in the year that is, if it's their first road game and Nico has to go to Oklahoma for their first road game, that could be really tough on him. I just think that, people say, well, it's just another game. No, it's not. Not that one. Josh Heupel is going to they're going to be throwing for the end zone every single play, like literally every single play. Like that, they're going to try to score 70 points against Oklahoma is what they're going to try to do. And I think that I think that's going to be a win personally. So you've narrowed it down to Alabama, Arkansas, and Georgia. Which of those three?
Yeah, so I've got us winning the other 5. I think we do lose at Georgia because, again, a lot of unproven players going into a hostile environment against a perennial power. And then I think Alabama and Arkansas, we go 1-1. And I don't know which one's which. I could easily see us beating Alabama. I could easily see us losing to Arkansas, and vice versa. So I think I've got 6-2 right there. The nice thing is our 4 non-conference opponents that year are UTC, Kent State, UTEP, and NC State. So I'm going to go ahead and call it right now. I think we'll be 10-2 in 2024.
I think that's a totally fair, totally reasonable prediction. I think that's a very good prediction. I agree with you. Zach, so Zach's talking about the essentially the media wanting the storyline of Heupel going back to Oklahoma. So he said, duh, Evan. Yeah, he's right. Exactly. And Carl agreed. He said exactly. Carl earlier had said everybody's teams will line up to schedule against the gimmicky offense, right? That's a good one. I like that. Apparently it is a gimmick, even though it beats everybody. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Zach said Nico will take us to an 8-0 finish. I love the optimism, Zach. I love. He said back-to-back natties. I love it. I love that the optimism there. I think 10-2 is certainly a reasonable prediction for that year. And here's the thing: if Tennessee goes 10-2 and their only 2 losses are to Alabama and Georgia, they're in the playoff. Like that's what's going to happen. Okay, if they'll be like the number 12 rated team because they'll have lost to potentially the 2 top 5 teams, and so they'll end up like number 12 in the rankings, and they're in the playoff. Like that's what's going to happen here. And
the other thing that's going to be interesting with that Oklahoma game, and this will be completely a wait and see thing, but right now Jeff Lebby is the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, and he is running Josh Heupel's system. It'll be interesting. He's getting a lot of phone calls about group of 5 head coaching jobs. So it'll be interesting to see if by 2024 he's still there.
Yeah.
But if he is, we might be watching a Tennessee-Oklahoma game at Oklahoma with the Oklahoma former Heisman contender running his offense against his former protege running his offense.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, that's storylines galore. Storylines galore. Earlier when we talked about Clemson and Clemson and Vandy switching conferences, Carl said, try to get Danny Cannell to say that. That guy's an SEC hater. Yeah, he is for sure. I think part of that's a show with Danny Cannell too, but I think he definitely makes his living off of that. Speaking of Texas A&M, Carl said, it could potentially be disastrous for them if any of that early success is attributed to Bobby Petrino. That could stoke the fire a little bit down there.
Oh, yeah.
Zach said, I hate losses. You ever seen Remember the Titans? We're going to be perfect. I agree, man. I love it. All right. So next up in the conference here. Excuse me. Sorry. That one snuck up on me. We got South Carolina. So they got home games against LSU. That's a loss. Ole Miss. That's probably a win. Missouri, probably a win. Texas A&M, probably a loss. Any of those you disagree with?
Probably not. I think Ole Miss is probably a coin toss. I think a lot of that'll depend on who all Lane has gotten out of the portal and who his quarterback is. Again, Spencer Rattler will be gone, so South Carolina will be.
That's true. Yeah,
South Carolina will be rolling with an unproven starter.
That's true.
So I could see Ole Miss sneaking in there and outscoring them.
Yeah. Alabama, that's a loss. Kentucky, probably a win. Oklahoma, at Oklahoma, that's a loss. And Vanderbilt's a win. So I'm saying out of this, 3-5, maybe 4-4.
You got 4-4. You said they'd beat Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I'll go 3-5. The more I think about it, onboarding a new quarterback against Lane Kiffin, I don't think you can outscore him. I think 3-5.
Yep. Back on Tennessee, Carl said, don't count Georgia as a loss. I believe that there's a coach that can strategize against aggressive defense. It's Heupel, especially the more he sees them. Yeah, it's fair. It's totally fair.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. My concern is more the amount of unproven players we will have. It's not so much what Georgia has. Going in between the hedges as a first-time starter is not easy. And honestly, I'm not as concerned about the offense as I am the defense, because we're going to be starting a whole group of new linebackers and at least 3 guys in the secondary. It's just hard to go in there.
Zach said South Carolina's going 2-6. I mean, that's definitely possible out of this, because they might not be Missouri and they might not be Kentucky. So, I mean, I think that's definitely possible. They're going to be Vanderbilt, but really Missouri and Kentucky are the two kind of coin tosses here. Like, could they beat one of them? So I think that's totally a reasonable prediction right there. Let's see. Our next team up on our list here is Missouri. So they got Arkansas at home, Auburn at home, Oklahoma at home, and Vanderbilt at home. I have them winning one of those games. That's Vanderbilt. What about you?
I've got them at 1-3 right there, and it would be absolutely fine with me if Vanderbilt snuck up and beat them too. The more games Eli Drinkwitz loses, the better.
I totally agree. They have to go to Alabama, to Mississippi State, to South Carolina, and to Texas A&M. I do not think they'll beat Alabama or Texas A&M. They might beat Mississippi State. They might beat South Carolina. Let's say they go 1-1 there. I don't know which one they would lose to, but 1-1. So I have them winning 2 games here, 2-6. What do you think?
I got them at 2-6. I think they'll beat Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, and I don't think they'll compete with the rest.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. All right. Then we got Mississippi State. This one's tough for me because it's just such an unknown, man. Like
this one
so many
me.
unknown variables. They have Arkansas, Florida, Missouri, and Texas A&M at home. Thankfully, that is a slightly favorable schedule at home for them. But they have to go to Georgia. That's a loss. They have to go to Ole Miss. That's probably going to be a loss. They have to go to Tennessee. That's a loss. They have to go to Texas. That's a loss. They're going to lose all 4 road games. Um, honestly, I don't really see him winning any of the home games either. Maybe Missouri.
This one pains me because I'm a huge Mike Leach fan. And I think Zach Arnett is a gifted defensive mind, but I think he made a massive mistake in the offseason. Your one redeeming quality, because it wasn't his defense. His defense was average to below average this past year, and they're not going to be much better this year. Your one redeeming quality is you had a quarterback that could run the air raid to perfection, and he could keep you in games.
Yeah.
So what did you do in the offseason? You went and hired an offensive coordinator who doesn't run the air raid. So you're one guy, literally probably the only guy on their roster that's getting NFL looks, is now going to have to learn a brand new system. And for those of you who don't know much about the air raid footwork, the air raid timing, the air raid terminology is completely different than what he's going to be running in this system. So you just took your best player and made him average on purpose. And then he's going to graduate and he's going to leave. And this season right here, you're going to try to onboard a new quarterback running a system that no one has confidence in because you sucked all of 2023. I got you going 0-8. I don't think they're going to be in any of these games.
Yeah.
I think Zach Arnett's going to be 2 years and out.
Very well may be. That's a good point. Ole Miss. They got home games against Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma. I can see them going 2-2 there, with losses to Oklahoma and Georgia.
Yep,
they might beat Oklahoma, but I don't know. They get them at home. That's good.
Again, I think that's going to come down to, is Jeff Lebby still at Oklahoma? If Oklahoma's onboarding a new offensive coordinator that year, I could see Ole Miss slipping up on them. If Jeff Lebby's still there, I think he can outscore them.
They have to go to Arkansas, to Florida, to LSU, and to South Carolina. I think they beat South Carolina. I think they lose to LSU. I think they probably beat Florida and lose to Arkansas. So I got them going 2-2 over there. So I got them going 4-4 here.
Yeah, I have the exact same thing. I think they go on the road and beat South Carolina just by outscoring them. I don't think they can get close to LSU. Arkansas on the road's a tough game. But Florida is still going to be a dumpster fire at that point. So, they can go on the road and get that one. So
Carl said same. I think Carl was referring to Mississippi State going 0-8. You can verify for me, Carl, if that's correct or not. But I think that's what Carl was referring to. But everybody let us know your predictions on these as well in the comments. I'll put them on the screen. Let us know what you see in these. You probably, if you can put like the team or something aside, that'd be good. That way I know for sure. But there's Ole Miss's conference schedule for 2024. As we move on, so Carl said Quinshon Judkins, no relation, Heisman shot, but come NFL draft he could be. Yeah, and he was saying, yeah, it was Mississippi State. Yeah, I mean, Quinshon may not be at Ole Miss for this season that we're looking at right here. He may be in the draft, like Carl said. LSU. Home games, Alabama, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt. Well, we know they're going to beat Vanderbilt. I think they'll beat Ole Miss. I think they'll beat Oklahoma. I don't know about Alabama. I don't think that one's going to happen. So I got them going 3-1 there. What do you think, Rustin? Away games. Go ahead.
I think that Alabama game, if they get them, it's in LSU. I think they can get them.
Yep.
The
big question is who's going to be Alabama's quarterback. That's the big question,
right? And in that season right there, who's LSU's quarterback going to be? That game might be decided by who has the better quarterback, because
Yep.
at every other position they're pretty equal. I also think it'll be interesting to see how Alabama's new offensive coordinator settles in, and what this looks like moving forward with him. I just because of, and this is a weird thing to say when you talk about Nick Saban, but just because of continuity, I think Alabama's got some offensive continuity issues right now, and it's probably not going to get solved anytime soon. I think I'd give this to LSU just because of continuity.
What's the dude that just got hired from Notre Dame as offense coordinator? I can't think of his name. He brought Buckner with him as a quarterback, but I can't think of his name.
Tommy Reese.
Yeah, Tommy Reese. It'll be interesting to see if he's still there in
Right.
2024. Because Nick he might be on a short leash with Nick. Away games, they got to go. Carl said after the Vols pummeled LSU, he was surprised the drubbing they put on Purdue in the bowl game. Yeah, totally agree.
Tennessee was a wake-up call for them. They played extremely well after that game. I think Brian Kelly got after them pretty good after that one, and they woke up and really started playing well.
The away games, they have to go to Arkansas, to Florida, to South Carolina, and to Texas A&M. I think they beat South Carolina. I think they beat Florida. The Texas A&M and Arkansas games, man, those are tough ones. Because once again, who's their quarterback? So I'm going to say, but then again, for Arkansas, who's their quarterback? So yeah. I'm going to say they win at Arkansas and they lose at Texas A&M. So 3-1 over there, 3-1 on the left side, or 2-2. So I have them going either 5-3 or 6-2, one of the two. That Alabama game's the toss-up game. What do you think?
I'm going to go 8-0. I think they've got the depth at every position. I think they're doing a good job stockpiling talent. I think they're going to have good continuity. I don't see any of their coaching staff leaving. Now, what's going to be interesting is this is the year that they play their non-conference opponents. You know, 2 of them are South Alabama and Nicholls State. Okay, whatever. But the other 2 are UCLA and Southern Cal,
which will actually both be Big Ten schools by this point. And the Southern Cal game is a neutral site game in Las Vegas.
Yep. So this could stack up to be a really interesting schedule. Like they could go 12-0, or they could go 8-4.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. This one has a lot of cool storylines in it.
Yep. Let's see here. As we move on, we got Kentucky. All right, they got to go to Auburn. I'm gonna say that's a loss. They got to go to Georgia. I'm gonna say that's a loss. They got to go to South Carolina. Maybe that could be a win. To Vanderbilt. That's a loss. Or home. I mean, I said they got to go to all these people. They're hosting all these people. So home against Vanderbilt, that's a win. They're not going to beat Auburn. They're not going to beat Georgia. South Carolina, that's a toss-up. They got to go to Florida. Listen, Florida, they're going to be well aware that that's going to be one of the only games in the season when they'll have a legit shot at winning. They're going to put everything they got into that game and come out with a win. They're not going to beat Ole Miss at Ole Miss. They're not going to beat Tennessee at Tennessee. They're not going to beat Texas at Texas. So I have them winning 1, maybe 2 games here.
So let's start with their non-conference opponents, because I think this matters a lot. In 2024, Kentucky, who are the poster child for why you need a strength of schedule index, non-conference plays Akron, Ohio, as in University of, Murray State, and Louisville. I don't know how they'll survive those 4. So obviously they'll be 4-0 there. I think they'll beat Vanderbilt.
I'm calling it now, that Ohio game closer than the experts think.
Huge Bobcat fan.
They got some cool helmets. I'll give them that.
I think they lose. They lose to Auburn. They lose to
Ohio,
Georgia.
that is, not Kentucky.
Right. They lose to Auburn. They lose to Georgia. I think South Carolina's a coin toss, depending on what time of day that game is and where it is in the schedule. I think they beat Florida and they lose those other three. So I would have them on that schedule at Devin Leary won't be there in 2024. I would have them at.
But I think Carl makes a good point with the offensive coordinator who's returning. That is one reason why they have some hope for optimism, but we don't know who their quarterback will be that year.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see who it ends up being.
Yeah. Liam Cohen's a great play caller. He knows his stuff. But again, just like some of these other schools, he's going to be onboarding a new quarterback that year. So I'll give them. You talk me into it with the Liam Cohen comment. I do think he can outscore South Carolina. So I'll give them 2-2 in that home column and 1-3. So what is that? 3-5. And then because of their incredibly difficult non-conference schedule, they go 7-5. And Mark Stoops gets a 25-year raise.
Yep. I got him going 6-6 on the year as a whole. Barely making a bowl game. Let's see. Georgia. Well, what do you know? Somebody actually has to play a tough schedule. How about that? After this, man, if you're a Georgia fan, you're watching this right now, you better love 2023 because next year's schedule is like way harder than this year's schedule. So Georgia fans, they're salivating over 2023. And this comment gets me. It's hilarious. This is the Southeastern Conference's tweet. And this Georgia fan right here goes, "We get screwed every year for exciting new home games, especially night games." Dude, y'all's schedule is Carl said, and Stoops gets a statue in Kentucky as well if you go 7-5. Georgia's schedule this year, it's laughable. I mean, it's laughable. So as we look at 2024, they retain the Auburn matchup, they retain the Florida matchup. They're going to win both of those games. Mississippi State, they get Tennessee at home. I think they go 4-0 there. They have to go to Alabama. Welcome to the club, folks. We're the only team, us and Auburn, before 2024, us and Auburn were the only two teams in the country who had to play Alabama and Georgia every single year. We were it. It was us and Auburn. We had to play those two teams every single year. And for a change, Georgia's having to do the same thing for one season. They have to go to Alabama. They have to go to Kentucky, to Ole Miss, and to Texas. I think they beat Kentucky and Ole Miss. I think they're going to lose to one of the other two, Alabama and Texas. I don't know which one, but I think they'll lose to one of them. So I'm going to say 7-1 here. Probably Texas. I think they'll beat Texas, or they'll lose to Texas.
People should call all their Georgia fans and prepare them for what I'm about to say. I think they go 12-0. I think they win all 8 of those. If you look at their non-conference that year, they've got Clemson, and that's basically a home game. It's the Chick-fil-A kickoff game in the Georgia or in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. They've got Tennessee Tech, they've got UMass, and they've got Georgia Tech. So, the kickoff game is essentially a home game against Clemson, and then they've got 3 easy wins in their non-conference, and then I think they win all 8 of these. So I would not be surprised at all if they go 12-0 in 2024. If they don't, I would bet strongly that Mike Bobo is on the hot seat.
Oh, yeah, for sure. for sure. No doubt about it. Ginger Marvelous Mouse Travels said, "You guys are so close to the 1,000 subscribers." I totally agree. By the way, she is an excellent travel agent. If anybody is looking for her services, are totally free. She books Disney destinations, Universal Parks and Resorts, Disney, Disney Cruise Line, Adventures by Disney, Sandals and Beaches Resorts. She books all those things. Um, she is an awesome, awesome lady. I happen to be married to her, so that's why I'm very fortunate. Um, she's right. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers. We're 45 people away, so we'd love it if people would subscribe. That'd be amazing. And check out gingermmt.com. That's gingermmt.com, short for Marvelous Mouse Travels. So gingermmt.com, totally free to use her to book your vacation. By the way, you say, how is that possible? Well, okay, here's how. If let's say you're going to Sandals, for example, Sandals Resort, and all vendors do this, they build in the price of a travel agent in your trip. So they know you could potentially use one. So they just build the price in. So if you go online by yourself and book it on their website, you're paying for a travel agent, even though you're not using one, because they've already built that into the cost of the trip. And so if you use a travel agent, then they just give the travel agent the commission that they earned because you paid for it anyway. And if you don't use a travel agent, then they're like, "Woo, yeah," they just pocket the rest of the money. So, you're paying for it whether you use it or not. So you might as well get free help, and she'll sit on hold for hours for you, so you don't have to. Pretty sweet deal. Win, 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 as Michael Scott would say. All right, so the next group here we got is Florida. Who knows what in the world is going to be going on in Gainesville by 2024? It could be a hot mess down there, man. They have Kentucky at home. I think they'll win that game because they know that'll be one of the few games they really have a legit shot at winning. I think they lose to LSU. I don't know about Ole Miss. I think they lose to Texas A&M. I think they lose at Georgia. I think they win at Mississippi State. They lose at Tennessee and they lose at Texas. So, I mean, I have them going potentially 2-6, maybe 3-5 here. What do you think?
So I've got them going 2-6, but more importantly, you mentioned it earlier, their non-conference schedule. I've also got them losing to Florida State, so that's 2-7. I got them losing to Miami, that's 2-8. I think they can sneak past Central Florida, but that's not a gimme. And I think they beat Samford, so that's 4-8. Which we might be looking at the end of Billy Napier right here.
Yeah. I mean, there is no doubt about it. They have the single toughest schedule in the country that year. No one else can claim, "Oh, our schedule's tougher." No, it's not. They get the crown that year for toughest schedule. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Let's see. Carl said, "What if Georgia loses some key players to the NASCAR transfer?" That's pretty good. I like that. They'll go bark at the cars.
I think he's referring to all of the traffic violations that have happened recently in Athens.
Yeah. They have been driving a little quickly down there lately. I didn't catch that, but you're right. That's exactly what he's referring to.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good one. It was over my head. That was good. It's this fog I'm in from this upper respiratory infection. That's what it is. Good luck to Florida in 2024. We wish you the best. Not really, but you're going to need it because that might be the toughest schedule literally in the history of college football. Especially the toughest schedule of any team over the last 13 years. That is not fair to them at all, but that's what they got. So, because they're, yeah, he said they were so sympathetic to our dumpster fire. Would hate that for the Gators. Amen, brother. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. 100% agree. 100%. They're going to need all the help they can get that year. All right. Auburn, we're to the A's, so we're close to the front of the alphabet here. Sorry. Let's see. Home, they got Arkansas at home, Oklahoma at home, Texas A&M at home, and Vanderbilt at home. They'll beat Vanderbilt. I don't know about the other three.
I think they'll sneak up on at least one of those other three. I've got
I
them
agree.
going 2-2 there. Hugh
Yeah, I agree with
Freeze.
that.
If you look at Hugh Freeze's track record, he's always got 1 or 2 games every season that he wins that you're like, whoa, how'd they do that? So I could see them going 2-2 there.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And honestly, 2-2 in the other column. I think they easily beat Kentucky and Missouri and lose to Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we both agree 100% on that one. It's 4-4 for the Auburn Tigers in 2024, and I think that would be encouraging to the fan base. That would be progress for sure, because the teams that they're losing to are really good teams.
Yeah, and their 4 non-conference games are Cal, New Mexico, Louisiana Monroe. Actually, they only have 3 right now. They got to find a 4th. So I'm sure they'll
Well,
find an
it's going to be
FCS
an
school.
FCS. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they probably go 8-4 that year, and that's a good stepping stone year for Hugh Freeze.
Absolutely. End up probably in like the Tax Slayer Bowl or something like that.
Yep.
All right. So Arkansas, they are hosting Texas, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and LSU. Honestly, the only possible win I see there is Ole Miss. Texas and Arkansas is always a good game, but
yeah, I would agree. I would have them at 1-3 in that column.
Yeah, they have to go to Auburn, to Mississippi State, to Missouri, and to Texas A&M. They easily, I think, go 2-2 there, potentially 3-1 if they can beat Auburn. But let's shoot low and say 2-2. So that would be 2-2, and then so 3-5. Yeah, 3-5.
I've got them at 4-4. I think they'll probably lose to. I think they'll probably lose to Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee, Texas, and Texas A&M. I think they can win the other 4.
Yep.
Now what's interesting is their non-conference. Their non-conference, they have Arkansas Pine Bluff. Okay, that's a win. So
That's
5-4. Louisiana Tech. Okay, 6-4. That's a win. But the other 2, UAB in year 2 of Trent Dilfer as head coach, and Oklahoma State.
Yeah, they're not going to beat Oklahoma State.
So that could shake out to be pretty interesting. Like they could very easily end up like 7-5.
Yeah.
And
I
maybe
definitely
even
think that's possible.
if UAB slips up on them, maybe even 6-6.
Or if Ole Miss beats them.
Yeah.
So I mean, they could very easily go 6-6 that year. All right. So to Alabama. Once again, there's so many unknowns about this, but man, they got a tough schedule. Well, before we move on, Carl said, I like Pittman a lot, but he's in trouble. Competing for talent in the West was bad enough. Now with Texas and Oklahoma, let's see in their stomping ground. Man, that's a great point, Carl. Mm-hmm. That is a fantastic point. Recruiting just got way tougher for Alabama, or excuse me, Arkansas, because previously they could say, yeah, that's right. That's a great point too. Because both of them previously they say, hey, come play in the SEC. I mean, everybody knows we're the best conference in the country. And that would pull people away from Texas and Oklahoma. Well, now Texas and Oklahoma say, hey, come play in the SEC. So, I mean, that little bargaining chip, which was a huge bargaining chip, is gone now. That is a great point. I'm glad you said that, Carl. So let's see. Home games against Auburn, Georgia, Mississippi, and Missouri and South Carolina. I think that they won't lose to Georgia, but they win all the other 3. Away games at LSU. Carl said it's huge for their recruiting. I agree. So they go to LSU, to Oklahoma, to Tennessee, and to Vanderbilt. Obviously, they're going to beat Vanderbilt. Tennessee, I think, is a toss-up game. Um, man, it's just so hard to know. Uh, I, I'm gonna say Tennessee beats them just because it'll be Nico's second year in the system, and who knows who will be a quarterback for Alabama. So I'm going to say Tennessee beats them, but like you said, Tennessee's going to have so many unproven guys all over the place that year. Man, that's a tough one. So I'm going to say they lose to either LSU or Tennessee and beat the other one. So I'll say 6-2 at this. What do you think?
I got them at 5-3, losing to Georgia, LSU, and Tennessee. But a couple of things that are important about the non-conference. Guess who so week 1 they'll win. It's Western Kentucky, so that's 6-3. Guess who week 2 is?
I don't know.
The University of South Florida. Josh Heupel is going to get a full scouting report of exactly how Alabama will try to defend him in week 2.
Yep.
Thank you, Alex Golich.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So okay, they'll beat South Florida. So now we're at 7-3. Their other non-conference game late in the season, homecoming, is Mercer. Okay, that's 8-3.
Definitely, that's a win.
Yeah, but there's a trap game here. In week 3, they go to Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's Luke Fickell in year 2 at Wisconsin.
Not an easy win.
He has proven that he can win anywhere. He has proven that he can recruit anywhere, and that's year 2. Like, this could be a statement win for Luke Fickell. What happens at Alabama if Nick Saban goes 8-4?
Okay, now I'm open the app just so we can watch the dumpster fire unfold. Can you imagine some of the stuff on Twitter that would be going on if they go 8-4?
Yep.
It would be beautifully glorious all at the same time. Like, man, it would just be, oh my goodness, people be losing their minds. Oh my goodness. I want it to happen now just so we can watch it unfold. Like, and just as spectators, just to watch it.
And just from a Tennessee perspective, keep in mind, this will be year 2 for Alex Golich at South Florida. So he'll have his system in place. He'll have gotten some guys out of the portal to make it move faster. Like, he'll have some dudes. He'll be able to execute. So Nick Saban can't go out there and just play vanilla and beat South Florida. Like, he's going to have to truly defend that thing. And Josh Heupel's going to get a really good look at what Nick Saban's going to do against Tennessee.
Because let's be honest, historically, if you look back over it with Ole Miss and Texas A&M when they had Johnny Manziel and all this kind of stuff, the running gun, upbeat, up tempo, fun style offenses. Historically, that's been Saban's kryptonite. That's been the one thing.
Hugh Freeze owned him.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really interesting. Not an easy schedule by any means, but man, oh man, I really hope they go 8-4 just so we can watch it burn. Yeah, Carl said Bama boys on drunken tirade punches wife and sister. So here's what's really sad about Alabama fans, and I know that there are some among Tennessee fans too that probably, I don't think any of us would do this, but do y'all remember when the kick six happened and there was an Alabama fan who shot and murdered another Alabama fan because her was a lady. In her words, she said the other person wasn't upset enough. Psychopath.
Get your priorities.
Yeah. They lost a football game and the person said she wasn't upset enough, so she killed her, literally murdered her. That's insane, man. That is insane. So hopefully if they go 8-4, nobody will be doing that. I mean, that's just psycho. So hopefully nobody will be doing that. Zach said Nick better get used to losing to Tennessee. I agree with you, Zach. I totally agree with you. Nick Saban did not want to see Josh Heupel come to Tennessee. because that rivalry just got rekindled big time, buddy. And I totally agree with Zach, because I think Tennessee is it's gonna be more like the early 2000s when Tennessee was like 7-1 against Alabama for a while or something like that. Um, Carl said 2 more of those, Zachary, and Saban retires. Yeah,
Possible.
2 more Tennessee wins, and Saban might retire, and that would be this year that we're looking at, 2024. Yeah, I mean, if Saban wants to beat Heupel, it's interesting to think what would be a better scenario for him at home this year, but Joe Milton's the quarterback, or at Tennessee the following year, but and Nico's the quarterback. I don't know, honestly, which would be an easier scenario for him. Probably the second year because of all the other people that would be playing as well.
Yeah.
Trying to replace so many folks.
Dexter Wilson said if Alabama will be burning furniture in the streets if they go 8-4.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, Dexter, welcome, buddy. Glad you're with us. Sorry I missed your comment there. Yeah, there would be couches ablaze in Tuscaloosa if they go 8-4.
Can you imagine the callers, the Paul Feinbaum show callers?
Oh my goodness!
Like there would be some legendary ones.
Paul Feinbaum hopes Alabama goes 8-4.
Yeah.
He would have material for weeks on end of just opening the phone lines.
Yep.
You know who would have the hardest job in the country if Alabama goes 8-4? It would be the producers at every radio station in Tuscaloosa, and the guy who produced the Paul Feinbaum show, because their finger would have to be so ready to push that cutoff button anytime an Alabama person called in, because like there would be stuff coming out of their mouth that they could not have on air. So those poor dudes would have their finger like ready to roll at a moment's notice.
I listen to Greg McElroy and Cole Cubic almost every morning, and even now, they're based out of Birmingham. Even now, occasionally they will get a caller who will question Nick Saban's ability to win another national championship, and it's just like you. They try to get them off the air so fast because it's like, number one, you're not sane. Number two, we're not going to have this conversation. But it is hilarious how even now, he went 10-2, and they're already questioning if he can win at a high level.
Yeah, that's wild. Zach, we are so sorry, man. Zach said, on a serious note, please pray for me. My aunt just passed away Thursday. She was a lifetime Tennessee fan. Carl said, God bless you and your family, brother. No doubt about it, Zach. We will certainly be praying for you, buddy. I'm so sorry about that. That's a hard deal, man. No, don't worry about that at all, buddy. Hey, I assure you, I'll give you my word. Dexter said he'll be praying for you too. Man, this is so cool to see people saying that. I promise you too, Zach. I'll be praying for you, man. I promise. It's never an easy thing.
Yep.
That's one thing that while we do this is that, we hope this opens doors eventually that we can, do this kind of thing and have it be a way that we can influence more people for Christ and with our faith. And so, we will certainly be praying for you. That's the best thing we can do. No doubt about it. Hey, Carl said she's got the best seat now. You ain't kidding, brother. She absolutely does. Absolutely. Bowing at the feet of Jesus, man. That's what I'm talking about. We will certainly be praying for her. Absolutely. Or for you guys, I mean. Well, we will certainly be praying for you, Zach. So the last two, we got the Texas long. Excuse me, sorry.
It's so weird. It's so weird. Just as an aside, it's so weird that the SEC network did the SEC in alphabetical order, and then just kind of randomly threw Texas and Oklahoma at the end. It's like, oh yeah, and here's these guys.
Yeah, well, they let it off on the show. They were the ones. I'm just going in reverse order back about right now, but yeah, I think it's odd that I know that it's like the soup du jour that they're the newbies or whatever, but man, show all your OGs first, and then like you said, show the Texas and Oklahoma folks at the end. But they didn't do that. I guess I understand.
So something I learned the other day that I was not aware of. Texas and Oklahoma were in the room when they told all the ads these schedules, but when it came to 8 or 9 games, Texas and Oklahoma didn't get to vote. Okay, well, I kind of understand that. They weren't technically in the fray yet, so they didn't get a vote. But when they do the 2025 vote, they still don't get a vote.
That's weird.
So when when the SEC decides Texas and Oklahoma's fate for 2025, even though they'll already be in the conference, they don't get to vote yet.
Yeah, that's weird. Zach just asked a really good question. He said, "What's going to happen to Longhorn Network?" That is a really good question, Zach. That's a really good question, actually.
I think they came up with a revenue share model. It's going to continue to exist, but I think they have to give a percentage to the SEC.
That makes sense. So Texas has Florida at home, Georgia at home, Kentucky at home, Mississippi State at home. I think they go 3-1 there. Then they go to Arkansas, to Oklahoma, or it's a neutral site game, to Texas A&M, and to Vanderbilt. Man, that's a tough one. I'm going to say, okay, here's the deal. I don't think they're going to beat Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. I think they're going to lose to at least one of them. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say 6-2.
Yeah, I've got them at 6-2. I think they beat Oklahoma. I think it's a coin toss between Arkansas and Texas A&M. What's going to be interesting though, and I learned this the other day as well. Do you know the last time Texas won 10 games in a season?
I bet it's probably 10 or 11 years ago.
2005.
There you go.
Okay. I highly doubt they do it this year. Their fans are hoping they do, because their fans don't think they will in 2024, because I think their fans look at this and they go, okay, we're probably 6-2, just like we just said. But their non-conference Power 5 opponent at Michigan. So
yeah.
So more than likely this season right here, they're going 9-3 at best.
Yeah.
So if they don't get 10 wins this year, it'll be over 20 years before they've won 10 games in a season.
I can't relate to that. I don't know what that's like. So last, but I'm not a huge. I don't really like Oklahoma, so kind of least as well. So somebody posted that Dwight Schrute meme underneath it. That's pretty funny. Oklahoma got a absolutely brutal introduction to the SEC and their schedule. Just brutal. They got Alabama at home. That's a loss. South Carolina at home. I think they'll win that. Yeah. Carlson, glad you brought up Georgia's 40-year drought. Yeah. Alabama at home, loss. South Carolina home win. Tennessee at home, loss. Texas at home. Or on the Cotton Bowl. I'm gonna say probably loss. So 1-3 there. At Auburn, I think they'll win that. At LSU is a loss. At Ole Miss, I don't know. At Missouri, that's a win. So I think they beat South Carolina. I think they beat Missouri. I think they beat Auburn. Maybe they beat Ole Miss. I'm going to say 3-5, maybe 4-4. Welcome to the SEC.
Yeah, I've got the exact same thing. And here's what's interesting: as of now in this season right here, 2024, Oklahoma only has 2 non-conference games scheduled, and one is against Temple and one is against Tulane. So they are probably really, really hoping that Tulane ends up getting picked up by either the Big 12 or somebody to count as their Power 5, so that they can go sign 2 FCS schools for the
Yeah.
remaining 2 games because they'll probably beat Temple and Tulane, but let's say they go 3-5 right here. With those 2 wins, they're sitting at 5-5. They need 2 FCS games just to be bowl eligible.
Yep. Not a cozy intro into the SEC right here if you're Oklahoma. And man, I'm so excited about that Tennessee Oklahoma game because let's not forget when last time Tennessee went there in 2014, Worley was the quarterback. And even with Worley as the quarterback, if you'll recall that there was a play that happened right before halftime where I can't remember exactly what it was, but Tennessee recovered a fumble or something. They said that they ended up rolling the guy down, but actually Tennessee, it was a fumble. They should have had the ball. And that could have made it a one possession game going into halftime. Instead, Oklahoma goes down and scores. I mean, that was one of those things where it was so close, man, even then. And we had Worley as the quarterback and Bush Jones as the head coach then.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have Josh Heupel, who's like Wyatt Earp, going to be bringing vengeance with him as he comes in there, man. That's I'm serious. They're going to try to score 70 points against Oklahoma that night. They're legit going to try to score 70.
He will walk in with bad intentions. He has no love for his alma mater. He'll if he can hang 100 on him, he will.
Well, there's I kind of made it through the show as best I could with the coughing and stuff here, but there's the 2024 SEC schedules. We appreciate everybody joining us tonight. Zach will be praying for your family, buddy. I promise I will.
One last thing. Evan loves you all so much. He did this on his birthday while he's sick.
Yep, that's true.
Kudos for making it through this entire schedule, and happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I share a birthday with Pat Summitt. I did not know that until I saw it on Twitter about several years ago. So I thought that was cool. Cool thing. But I appreciate everybody joining us tonight. This is a lot of fun, man. We love doing this. Dexter, we appreciate it, buddy. So we hope that everybody has a great evening. Saturday at 7 p.m. Tennessee plays LSU. Carl, we appreciate it, man. We love you, brother, and your other brother. Great job. We appreciate that, Carl. Does a bear poop in the woods? Welcome, buddy. We appreciate it. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that. But everybody be sure to tune in Saturday night. I think it's on ESPN.
Yeah, they're the primetime game.
So Tennessee, LSU. It'll be interesting to see who Tennessee puts on the mound. LSU's putting Paul Skeens on the mound because you got to win game 1. And if by any chance you can win game 2, which will probably be against Wake Forest, then you're sitting pretty at that point, because then you're in the championship round. You'd have to be beaten twice. Man, that if they can somehow pull off a win against LSU and then again against Wake Forest, then man, they're going to be sitting really pretty. And so we're hoping that's what happens. So everybody check that out. We'll keep you posted between now and then when we're going to go live. So just follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're definitely most active on Twitter. But all the places at the Vol Bros. And we hope everybody has an awesome evening. And yeah, Carl's right. Burt can hit a long ball in any park. Absolutely. I don't know if anybody saw the tweet from the College World Series grounds crew. Let me see if I can find it real quick, and I'll show it to everybody. Yeah, does a bear poop in the woods is right. They're making us learn it the hard way. That's exactly right. LSU and Wake Forest in back-to-back games is not an easy task.
Right. You're going to open with the number 1 pick in the draft on the mound, and then you're going to play the best team in America right after him.
Yep.
Congratulations.
I thought it was the College World Series.
Go ahead,
Russ.
Well, I was just going to say, I thought it was interesting that, and I think he may have tipped his hat a little bit. Tony Vitello talked about Drew Beam not getting opportunities in the postseason because of where he was in the rotation. I think that was his tactful way of already kind of setting the tone of, we're going to get Drew Beam on the mound earlier in this thing.
So this is the field, the grounds crew. This is the Charles Schwab Field Omaha grounds crew Twitter account, and this is the design for the field. And they said embrace the curves. So that, as you can tell, the curve of the back, the stadium back here, they're emphasizing that with the grass cut too. It's pretty wild looking. It's pretty cool though. I can't imagine the time and effort that took to make it look like that. It's pretty cool. But that's where they're playing this weekend, right there. And so, go ahead.
That home run he hit this weekend would do a lot of damage to that video board in right field.
Yeah, it would bust a hole in that video board.
That
right
thing
there.
is in harm's way.
Yeah. The W in World Series right there would be gone after Blake Burke hits it. So let's hope he does it again in the World Series, though. He needs some more quality at bats, unlike the last two at bats he had late Monday night and early Tuesday morning. Those were not his shining moments in those two at bats. But yeah, but hey, man, we appreciate everybody joining us. This is awesome. We hope everybody had a wonderful, wonderful time with us. And we will see everybody very soon. Like I said, keep your eyes on our Twitter account. We'll let you know when we're going to go live again. But we hope everybody has a great evening, and go Vols. And I didn't have it queued up. I should have done that. But here we go. All right. Should I do the baseball intro or the football intro to leave with? We talked a lot about. Let's do football. We talked a lot about it. No slight to the OmaVols. We did y'all at the beginning. He said, I see checkerboards. Yeah, I mean it's close. It's close. The interlocking of the thing there,
and the grass out there.
Yeah, Burke and Ahuna found their swings. They did. That was good to see Maui get the home run. Carl said, "Go Vols!" Absolutely, awesome. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys, and I'll do the baseball. And since we're talking about Omaha, so I have it queued up this time, so I'm actually ready now. It's live, folks. It's live, man. That's the beauty of this. So. We'll see everybody very soon.